5:02.
All right. Now we're going to the session that's on the agenda, but, okay. It is 5:02 on September 9th, 2025. This is a special meeting of the Common Council of the City of Oneonta, and with the clerk's assistant, we'll call the roll.
Mayor Drennick?
Here.
Councilmember Bozier Campoli?
Here.
Councilmember Welsh Russo?
Here.
Councilmember McHugh?
Here.
Councilmember Lepari Shu? Councilmember Carson?
Here.
Councilmember Harrington? Councilmember Forrester Rothbart?
Here.
Councilmember Matheson?
Here. I ask you to, will please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, folks. We can disregard the thinking that we might have had an executive session. There is no executive session that we're going to be going into. We will, however, go into the agenda. And I'm going to turn it over to Greg, who will turn it over, I expect, to Ginny. Greg?
Yeah, I'll just turn it right to Ginny. She's got a brief update on the city comparisons we had gone through previously, some additional slides that she's put together. Is that something we're pulling up as well as?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Carrie.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Greg. Okay, so on your desk tonight, you've got three additions to your budget binder. One is the graphs, which is the 2023 actuals of revenues and expenditures that I'll be going over soon. Just slip those into your binder in the graph section. You also have a memo from me for 2025 projections. I suggest that you put that under the 25 tab within your binder. Then also there is a one-page sheet that relates to the 2024 presentation that I had given, page 17. Councilmember Carson had requested the detail of the salary and fringe benefit savings of the $849,000. So I presented that to you in a one-page, and it shows it by department of where those savings were realized. So, so I would like to start with the graphs. So what we did, if you remember in the city comparison presentations that we did before, the data was tried to be collected from the city's budget documents. Some of the budget documents were very hard to comprehend. Some of them also were different than other cities. For example, the city of Oneonta puts all of the fringe benefits for active employees right within their departments. Some agencies put all the fringe benefits into what they call an undistributed code citywide or fund-wide. So what we did is we broke it out. So here, what you're going to see is the 2023 revenues for the general fund in total by city. Then you're going to see the service areas that we presented before, but what we did is we took the fringe benefits out, and we have a special, a single graph just on fringe benefits so you can see what their cost is. So again, this data is derived from the State Controller's Office website. We're able to download all of the city's information by category. And if Scott was here, I would say to him, this is where we have to go by the chart of accounts by department and by service area. And then what we did on the next screen, we showed the 2023 general fund total revenues for each city. And what you'll see here is we broke it out into real property taxes, so, sales tax revenues, and then also grand total for the entire general fund for the cities. And you'll see Oneonta is the 5th lowest in this comparison for how much money is brought into their general fund. So the next page is the fire department. This is all of the expenditures excluding the fringe benefits. So this is what we call the point ones, which is salary, point twos, which is equipment, point fours, which is all of their contracts and supplies and things like that. And you will see that Oneonta is the 5th lowest in the city comparison within this chart. This is a much more accurate reporting than what we did before because we were trying to go by budgets, which was a very difficult task. So the next graph shows the fire department's personnel, equipment, and all other expenses. We broke it out between the three different categories. And again, Oneonta is the 5th lowest within the comparisons. The next slide is the police department. It is the same format. It shows the police with excluding fringe benefits, and the Oneonta here is the 6th lowest in comparison to the other cities. And the following graph shows the same format with the police department with personnel, equipment, and all the other categories. These visuals just help you get a glimpse of, the information in a visual. The slide 8 is the DPW departments. Now, we tried from, we used all of the same codes that for what our city calls DPW. Some of the other cities might have had other departments. For example, a lot of cities put their chips within their general fund. We do not do that. All of our chips are within our capital project. So again, you'll see that Oneonta is the 9th lowest within the city comparison. And the following screen is the same format. It's DPW, the personal services, equipment, and all other expenses. 0.1s, 0.2s, 0.4s. Then we took the entire water department for all of the different cities. Anything that was coded to the water department, but what we did, we excluded, again, the fringe benefits, debts, but we included the debt service and the interfund transfers. So you'll see that the water department, or the water fund, I should say, for the city of Oneonta is the 5th lowest compared to the other cities.
Jenny, could you say again what you excluded?
We excluded the debt service payments and the interfund we included the debt service payments and the interfund transfers.
Mike, it's on the top.
Yeah, it's right at the header.
Oh,
And on slide 11, what we did then is we broke it out by category for you. So you can see personal services, equipment, all other debt service, and interfund transfers. I thought this would be interesting so you would see how much debt the other municipalities are expending each year within their water departments.
Was there a reason why we don't have Kingston on these two slides?
Because they probably didn't have any of those. They may not have a water fund itself. They may put their water fund right in their general fund. But I can look, but if a city does not appear in one of these charts, it's because they did not file that data at the state controller's level. Sewer fund, same, we went with the same presentation. Again, the city of Oneonta is the 3rd lowest within the city comparisons. And slide 13, again, breaks it out between personal services, equipment, all other debt service, and interfund transfers. And again, you can just, this is a really nice visual to show you, you know, how the city is comparing to the other activities within these cities. And I don't expect you to absorb this all tonight. You're going to have to, you know, take time to read it. And then what we did on slide 14 is we took the general fund fringe benefits. So we wanted to add it together, citywide for the general fund, all departments, including the cities that charge it to the departments themselves, or they charge it all to an undistributed code. So this will show you that the city of Oneonta's fringe benefit costs are the 6th lowest within the city comparison. And slide 15 shows you our debt service expenditures. I wanted to show you the debt payments that the other cities are incurring on an annual basis, or at least for 2023 as compared to the city, and we were the 5th lowest in the comparison.
So this is their annual payments?
This is their annual payments, correct.
Do you know which city has a similar population?
I don't have that in front of me, and I don't want to quote it off the top of my head.
I believe that we had did we have a slide in our previous
Yes, we did.
city comparisons that showed the overall population, I think based on the 2020 census
Yes.
for each of those counties? We'd have to refer back.
Yeah, it's in the original city comparison. Do you want me to flip back to that?
I think Batavia, Geneva, are pretty close. Glens
Geneva.
Falls.
Yes.
Is it okay to ask questions?
Sure,
now? Are you-
absolutely.
Okay, so to draw on Don's point, when I'm looking at this, what would be very helpful in terms of guiding my interpretation would be to know the population size for each of these cities.
Okay, so-
And then also, some of them are very close or adjacent to larger metropolitan areas. And that also, can make a difference in terms of understanding and interpreting their budgets. So those two features might be helpful to include, would be helpful for me to further.
So page 18 in the previously
Yeah, that's
included
what I'm looking
graphs.
for.
Says page 18.
In other words, it would make the comparison that much richer.
Yeah, you already have this information, it's in one of your previous screens, I'm just trying to find it.
Yeah.
Page 18 of the original one, levy to the population, and I believe we've got some population numbers also.
It's okay, I can go and look.
Yeah.
It just, in terms of looking at the numbers in comparison
Yes.
with one another,
Yeah.
I just would like to have that.
Okay, I can do that for next time.
Okay.
As far as the metropolitan population,
Yeah.
at one point, a couple years ago, I had looked at what is the population within 25, 50, 100 miles
Yeah.
of a certain city. We could do something like that, would give you an idea of.
Yes.
But we
areas
already have a
population.
chart from the state controller's office that really does that for us.
Okay, great.
So if you go to your yellow graph from the state controller,
Okay.
what it does is it compares the city of Oneonta to all cities, 44 of the cities within New York State.
Great.
It compares us to the southern tier cities, there are 6 of them, and it compares us to 21 medium upstate cities.
Okay.
Okay?
So that's exactly the kind of
Yep.
information that will be
Yep.
helpful.
It's right, you already have it?
Great.
It's right there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so and basically why we did this, as I said to you before, the previous city comparison charts that we tried to do comparing city budgets was very difficult, and we wanted to give you actual numbers based on the annual reports that they filed with the state. So this is basically a summary of that information. So any questions at this point?
This is really helpful.
Just really quickly, are there any slides or data within the slides that you'd like us to pay particular attention to?
No, I would like you to pay attention kind of to the whole picture.
Okay.
Because when we're discussing the 26 budget, and we're talking about the services that we're providing, this gives you a really good idea of what the other cities are doing. And so that can help you inform your decision-making. And, so also, when you look at the expenses by service area, I'd like you to flip back to the revenue section to see how much revenue they're bringing in as compared to the revenue we're bringing in.
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Ginny, I'm looking at slide 15 compared to slide 14. And what really jumps out at me is the total general fund fringe benefits on page 14 for Kingston is over 17 million. Yet the general fund debt service expenditures is only 146,000.
Well,
When you look at that, what does that say to you?
Well, that just tells me that they've had enough revenue. It tells me a couple of things. They've had enough revenue where they've paid down their debt for the general fund.
Mhm.
And it tells me that their payroll expenses is extremely high. So let me go back to the payroll for.
Which I would agree, because they maxed out everybody on police, fire, and DPW.
Yeah, yeah. But they just may have very little debt currently. But I could go into the detail to bring you back more
No, I just was
information.
curious what your thought process was
Yeah.
on that, because they literally beat us out on that. And Kingston, I was just trying to remember to Cecilia's point about population, compared to us, I just don't remember, they're much larger than us, aren't they?
But now that you asked that
Double.
question, Lynn,
Yeah.
what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna go back and look at the data that this was pulled from, and I'm going to see if the city of Kingston records all of their debt expenditures within the debt service fund. That is one thing that I did not look at, so I can update this if it
I don't want
happens.
to create any extra work for you.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. It was just that it's jumping out at me.
Mhm.
And then I was thinking of what Cecilia was talking about with population. It's just,
Jenny, one of the things around population, though, some cities' numbers are going to be skewed somewhat given that they're college towns,
Mhm.
right? And that obviously plays into, you know, the equation.
Mhm. That is correct.
Mike?
So, based on Cecilia's question, like, how, I don't wanna, again, create extra work for you, but something like the general chart 3 with it, like, organized, like, per capita as opposed to total
Mhm.
revenue?
That, again, is in the previous charts that you have in the city comparisons. There was a chart for per capita. Let me find it for you. So if you go to, starting on page 11, yep. So I want you to be in the city comparison
Right.
chart, right?
That's
Sorry.
what this over. There we go.
Oh, you moved, okay, you moved your graphs, okay. So if you start here, this starts with population information, so here's the median household, the household incomes, and then slide 18 is levy population. Slide 21 is the amount of taxes paid on the median household. Does that provide the information that you're looking for?
I think so, let me digest this some and I'll
Okay,
come back, I'll
all
come
right.
back to you.
Yep. And it's easy for us to redesign the graphs because we have so much data. So if there's a different type of presentation you like, we can put it together. I should say Alan can put it together. He's been the one helping me build these graphs.
Jenny, anything further on the city comparisons?
Unless they have more questions.
Questions, Council? Okay, I think we'll move on.
Okay. So the next thing I would like to do is go over the 2025 projections. So I just want to sum up how we arrived at these numbers. So this is a very high-level conservative projection for year ending 2025. And so what I did is I looked at revenues, I studied history, I looked at the current year's trends, I looked at averages, I looked at contracts, and I also determined one-time receipts. And then for the expenditures, I would take payroll, looking at the most recent payroll cycles to estimate the number of payroll days we have left for the remaining years. I would apply an average retirement percentage to those dollars, and I would also apply the FICA percentage to those dollars to estimate what our fringe benefits were going to be on the estimated payroll that we have not yet incurred. And a lot of the payroll, if it was overtime or part-time, I would annualize it based on the past 17 cycles that we've incurred so far this year. And equipment, I assumed that all the equipment was going to be purchased with the outstanding purchase orders and or any type of change orders that might happen. The transfers to capital projects, I assumed that they were all, in this analysis, I assumed all that money was going to be committed. For anything that's coming out of the reserves, I legally cannot transfer the cash until the expenditure is paid. So if some of these projects don't get paid until 2026, I will not be able to transfer the cash until then. This projection assumes that all of that will happen in 2025. Then I also, on the health insurance, I was able to look at year-to-date expenditures based on what it's costing us each month by each department, and I was able to predict what is going to cost until the end of the year. The .4s, what I did is I assumed that all of the .4s will be fully spent to their budget dollar. This historically has not happened, but for this projection, I wanted to be conservative and assume that all of the departments will consume all of their .4 budgets. Historically, as I said, it's averaged between 300 and 500,000 that for some reason those expenses didn't happen, projects got delayed, or quotes came in less than we had budgeted, things like that. So, page 2 of the memo, we'll start out right with the general fund. So you'll see as of December 2024, our restricted was 5.6, our unrestricted was 11. So I'm going to give the Daily Star a memo so she can follow along. The unrestricted was 11. I'm predicting that we're going to spend 1.9 million of restricted expenses and earn about 371,000 in revenues, leaving an ending balance of just over 4 million of restricted reserves. The unrestricted started out at 11.4. I'm predicting about 19.5 in expenditures and about 19.5 in revenues. So the total fund balance is estimated to decrease about 1.5 due to the use of the reserves for the equipment and capital expenditures, and the unrestricted fund balance is estimated to realize a small surplus. The 2025 adopted budget appropriated about 1.6 million with increases of 369, bringing the appropriated fund balance up to just over $2 million. And the following details the elimination of this use of fund balance. So let's start at the beginning of our adopted budget of 1.6. So that gets adjusted by the 2024 re-encumbrances of 187,000. Then we increased it for the fire chief salary adjustment by 12,000, the city clerk staffing by 23.5, the downtown campaign of 60,000, and Tyler Technology of 86. That brings it up to the 2.049. So how are we funding that? So these are the revenue estimates these are the surplus revenue estimates that I have calculated. We received the $6,700 that I told you at council for the COVID, our last admin COVID claim. That is, anything that's starred is a one-time revenue receipt. We're going to receive, I believe, about 10,000 more in parks and rec charges that we budgeted. Permits, other is about 20,000. Rental of real property is about 21,000. That reason is because we really didn't budget for rent, not knowing when the OPT building was going to be finished. Other public safety departmental income, this is code enforcement, about 30,000. That's probably going to come in much higher, but I wanted to be conservative in my estimate because I do not have at my fingertips right now how much is outstanding that may possibly get re-levied. The insurance recoveries, 41,000. Utility gross receipts, 45,000. Tax on adult use cannabis, 50,000. Payment in lieu of taxes, 51,000. The reason this is different is that the pilot agreement for Hillside Commons went up a great deal between 24 and 25, and we also received a pilot agreement for Springbrook, which was not included in the budget. Court fines, this is a one-time shot for the 195 Main Street Hotel. State aid is the additional state aid that we received for the temporary state distribution of $259. I think sales tax is going to be at least 500,000 over what we budgeted. And then all of the other categories, they're going to come under budget by about $90,000. And then, yes.
Sorry. So back to the payment in lieu of taxes,
Yes.
pilots. Besides Hillside Commons, what was the other organization?
Springbrook, the Ford Block.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. The expenditures, this is, we're going to probably realize about 367,000 in salary savings, about 353,000 in health insurance, 230,000 in retirement, 47 in FICA, and 3,000 under other categories, basically $1 million in expenditures. So that will bring a estimated surplus of about $46,000. The majority of the payroll and fringe benefit savings is due to vacancies within the police department, public works, finance, and code enforcement. So as we suggested at previous council meetings or budget meetings, it was reported that the use of restricted reserves for equipment and capital improvement indicates that the reserves need to be replenished. And as suggested, the recommendation to council is to consider transferring 1.5 of the unrestricted to the restricted reserves. This is our suggestions: 500,000 to highway, public safety, and streets and sidewalks. Council can decide how to distribute that. If you agree to, you could also decide to add more to parks and recs or to the IT or whatever categories that you would like to see the funding increase. At the previous meetings, I had given you detail on all of the reserve balances, so you have that to be able to study and decide where your priorities lie. So to sum this up, in our 2026 budget process, these are the goals that I believe that we should be considering during the process, is continued commitment to fully staffing positions. I understand that we have savings because of vacancies, but I would like the council and the community to know what the actual costs are for a fully staffed department for each department. I would also like to have the council consider commit funding to annual equipment and capital expenditures that are reasonable and sustainable. And when Greg and I study the capital, just so you're informed, we eventually think that we need about $1 million a year to replace different pieces of equipment, for our equipment replacement plan. But we can discuss that at a future meeting. And then also, it's very important to maintain strong fund balances for all of the obvious reasons that we have discussed in many different meetings. So this is a quick summary of the general fund projection. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Len.
Could you expand on your thought process for the $1 million a year that you and Greg were coming up with for you said apparatus, right?
Yes, I'm not ready to discuss that right now, if that's okay. If we can discuss that at, we're gonna hopefully have a meeting on the long-term capital improvement plan, which will include equipment, and excuse me, then we can discuss that at that time.
I can just share a little background. So, I have a spreadsheet, equipment replacement plan. We have all of our equipment listed in the anticipated replacement schedule of a 10-year vehicle or 15 or 20 or less than that, 5, 6. And so based on the purchase price inflated to a current value with some, adjustments, what do we expect that would cost in the current year? So in 2025, what would be the total replacement cost for our fleet? And then you divide that all by the number of years we expect to have that piece of equipment. Just a simple way of calculating how much we would need from general water and sewer. And a few years ago, that was about $1 million from the general fund per year, if we wanted to keep with the current replacement schedule that we have for the current fleet that we have. So that's a ballpark number for what we would need to dedicate each year. As Ginny showed and the numbers show, our unrestricted fund balance isn't moving from December of 24 to December of 25, but the restricted is going down, and that's due to the equipment expenditures, which is what, that comes next, I think.
Yeah.
We've got a little breakdown of what we dedicated from reserves for equipment expenditures and capital expenditures this year and how much we spent so far. But those are the types of things that are coming out of reserves typically, the equipment and the capital.
And are you looking at dividing that out? So I get the $1 million worldwide or citywide, but are you looking at breaking it down per, because obviously a fire apparatus is much more expensive, probably the most expensive department that we have when we buy a piece of equipment.
Yeah.
I was just wondering how you were thinking about that.
That's where I think looking at the highway equipment reserve, the public safety reserve is typically for equipment purchases. We need to be thinking about how much we need to be budgeting, ideally budgeting to put money into those reserves every year to then be taken back out again as the equipment needs arise. So you may not take out $500,000 every year from public safety, but may take out $1.5 million or $2 million one year as you build that up. Same thing with the highway equipment and all the others. So that's the theory, but right now we haven't been budgeting to put money into our reserves. We've just been budgeting to take money out. And so that's where we come up with the concept that we need to maybe focus on how do we sustainably fund equipment over time and not see that just continue to pull away from the reserves and rely on our potential surplus to replenish the reserves.
Right, but are we looking at taking, are we like 41, 42% where we should be, right? You want to cap down at 35% in our, I think it was the unrestricted fund,
yeah,
right? So could we do that? Could we bring that 7%? Could we move that over into the different equipment?
We could if you would, if the council approves it. My recommendation is really not to go down to 35%, only because we need some cushions. Say, God forbid, there was a natural disaster of some sort or another pandemic, or something that a rainy day fund is really needed for. That's why I like leaving, you know, the unrestricted fund balance between the 35 and the 42% number.
Mhm.
That gives council a little bit of cushion, you know, to depend on something that was very much unexpected.
And I think there's some examples with the 2025 appropriate fund balance. There were some things that are not equipment related that we took from unrestricted reserves that came up that weren't anticipated. So having that cushion for those types of expenditures makes sense, that you don't want to put it all into specific reserves. You don't want to be spent on those types of expenditures if you have other things that come up.
Agreed. But also, for the last 4 years, I think we've been averaging 1.1 million in surplus, right? So we're coming through our budget cycle with 1.1, so if that's the thought process, maybe that's what we should be looking at, is taking that money immediately and putting it over into the equipment fund, so we would basically be doing what you're suggesting.
Yeah, I think when we have a surplus in the unrestricted fund, moving that to restricted and keeping, you know, around the percentages that Jimmy talked about makes sense, and that's what we're recommending with the three distributions there, or whatever combination. But looking at the projection for 2025, we're not looking at a $1 million surplus in unrestricted fund balance. We're looking at unrestricted fund balance not changing, not reducing or increasing much. It's about the same, but restricted fund balance because of the expenditures going down. So there's not, you know, in 2025, this time, in a year from now, we probably won't have, we can have the same conversation, but we're not going to have that surplus from 2025 to talk about, the 1.5 million.
Yeah,
Right, Ginny, am I explaining that
Right,
accurately?
and as I said, this is a conservative estimate. So I'm expecting that the .4s probably will have some surplus. I'm also expecting that the sales tax may come in higher than what I've anticipated, but I don't feel comfortable putting that on paper. You know, so we may end up with a $700,000 surplus. But, you know, as Greg said, we did realize that surplus in the unrestricted fund in 2024, and that's why we're asking council to consider moving it to the restricted and replenishing the reserves.
Further from council?
And just since we're talking about equipment, if you jump to page 6 of your memo, I gave you a detail of all of the expenditures that has come out of the reserves for 2025.
I'm just, this is a question about clarity. Would you mind just stating once again that comment you just made in response, that you're recommending council to
authorize moving 1.5 million of the unrestricted reserve fund balance to the various restricted reserves.
Thank you.
I think we're,
Okay? Right. So as I said, page 6 of this memo shows you the detail of everything that we are going to incur or commit in 2025 for the reserves. Okay, so page 4 is the water fund balance projection. And again, you'll see in 2024, the restricted was just over 500,000 and the unrestricted 1.6. And I do want to say to you, in my previous memos to you, I broke out restricted, non-spendable, unrestricted, committed, and things like that. For this analysis, I just combined it all under unrestricted if it wasn't a legally restricted dollar. And the expenditures for the restricted is going to be about 65,000, revenues 21,000, and unrestricted expenditures about 3.6, revenues about 3.5. So the adopted budget appropriated 24,800 for the water fund and increased it by the 86,000 for Tyler Technology, 230,000 for the South Main Street and Market Street repair due to the water main break, and 33,000 for the 2024 re-encumbrances. So the estimated additional revenues of 204,000 and the estimated expenditure savings of 67,000 will reduce the use of fund balance to approximately 103,000. So this projection supports the need to continue increasing rates and to allow for the investment into our water main replacements and our other system improvements. So you can see the effect of having one, I'm going to say, small water main break and how it affects the water fund's fund balance. because it just isn't strong enough yet to absorb those unexpected repairs. Sewer fund, again, the restricted is a little over 500,000 at the end of '24 and 2.1 unrestricted. Restricted expenditures are at 42,000, revenues at 21.5. Unrestricted 2.9 for expenditures, 3.0 for revenues. So again, the '25 adopted budget appropriated $61,363 with increasing at 86,000 for Tyler and 51,000 for the 2024 re-encumbrances, or bringing it to a total just under 200,000. The estimated additional revenues, 144, and estimated expenditure savings of 106 applied towards the appropriated fund balance. Nets an increase in fund balance of about $51,000. So I think these estimates between the general water and sewer fund are very positive for the city, because we predicted 1.6 million use of fund balance for the general fund. We're not going to realize that. We are going to incur a smaller loss in the water fund, but again, the additional revenues helped decrease that loss. And the sewer fund is going to realize a surplus instead of using fund balance. And again, this supports the need to continue increasing the rates for the sewer collection system, not only to maintain the SPD's permit compliance, but to invest in infrastructure. And I just want to reiterate for the water and sewer funds, my last paragraph. I'm just going to read this out loud for the audience. As reported to the council by the Public Works Director, the city has approximately 68 miles of water main and 44 miles of sanitary sewer mains. The water and sewer systems require major investment in century-old infrastructure, in addition to providing staff to maintain and exercise infrastructure components. Significant costs are expected for lead service replacements, water meter replacements, pressure reducing valve replacements, and the infiltration and inflow repairs, and continuing water plant and wastewater plant upgrades, including transmission, distribution, and sanitary collection. So the system is large. The system's also very expensive. And so taking our slow and steady approach on increasing rates is helping us build the fund balances we need without overwhelming the public with a very large increase all at once. I still support that system of doing slow and steady increases over time to let it compound, and that way the customer can absorb it on a slower basis, and we can realize the revenues in the future to help build the fund balances to maintain all of the infrastructure repairs that we need to do.
Excuse me, that was 10% increase for 3 years?
We have done 10%, I want to say since 2020, maybe 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember.
We're in the third year.
Third year,
That
yeah.
was my question too.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, we were projected, I think, for 5 years.
Yeah. So,
But it was great.
yeah, so we're going to, I can give you a history on that, and Len, I have to apologize to council. We're probably not gonna be ready by next week for our water worth. We're hoping, maybe October 7th, if everybody is available for that. It's a council meeting, we can do it, earlier. I still have to finish up the audited financial statements. The deadline is September 30th, and that's gonna just take quite a few of my hours left, so I just have to choose which one I'm gonna do. So, so we will get the water worth, and we will go over, I'll give you the history of the rates increases, and we will show you future for the water rate on there, and we can take it out for the next 10 years if you want, and it will show you the information. And we'll have all of our anticipated capital projects, how we're going to fund them, and you will see that as we do our rate increases, how it compounds, and then also if we increase our water sales, for example, if we end up selling water to Cooperstown Baseball World, or not Cooperstown Baseball, All-Star Village, if we sell water up on the east end, the more customers we have, the more water sales that we have, that means that the rates don't have to go as high for the current customers, because we'll just be collecting from more customers. And we actually can put a growth factor in the water worth program to say that our sales or our customers are gonna grow, say, by 10% or whatever number of customers that we wanna put in it, and we can project all of those things.
Okay. Len?
So, Greg, are you gonna show us how many, I don't know, lineal feet of water and sewer pipes we're gonna project to start replacing? That's something we've never been able to do. If we continue on this path, right, that's where we're headed. So have you guys started thinking about how many lineal feet to be able to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about targeting a mile per year. I mean, that would be an initial target at least. We could do some more detailed calculation to see what we think our backlog is in order to catch up to the point where you're, let's say we're aiming for a 100-year life cycle, because that would be ambitious at this point, I think. But I think we can look at what that would need to be to,
Right.
yeah.
At least definitely the areas where we've had repeat breaks. I'm thinking of Main Street. We've had some continual breaks up there by the, was it Advanced Auto? In the stormwater system, right? Didn't we just do some work there?
That section's been replaced.
Right.
East of the roundabout.
Right.
To the town, or not quite to the town line, but to the town line,
Right,
having
to
been
the
replaced.
Okay. All right, I'm kind of excited to see that we're gonna be proactive instead of reactive this entire time, so.
Yeah, I mean, just to put it in dollar perspective, we dedicated $100,000 in transfers to capital projects for water fund projects this year. So $100,000 out of the operating fund went to Lawn Ave and Hill Place water main replacement. It ended up being $150,000 that we spent on that. But initially we budgeted for $100,000. We spent another $230,000 on the South Main water main break. Ideally, in the future, it wouldn't be for a water main break; it'd be for replacement. So that's $330,000, and we realized a decrease in our overall fund balance. So, in order to spend, let's say, $1 million a year, you can see how much more we need to increase to be able to be replacing good sections of water main every year. Chris, feel free to jump in if you.
The only thing I want to mention is we are at a cost savings with doing the work with our crews. We did hire a contractor to do the installation itself. We purchase the materials ourselves. We do a material supply bid, so we save money by purchasing bulk materials using our material supply bid.
Mhm.
And we're saving money by doing the trucking. We're trucking the materials in, and we're doing all testing, the chlorine testing, the pressure testing. So there is a significant savings related to that. If we did a project where we hired a contractor to do all of it, you're looking at $2 to $3 million a mile.
Right.
Go ahead, Liz.
So, Greg, back to that, because that's where I'm going, is on Lawn and Hill. I don't know how many lineal feet that is, because that, I thought was an excellent way of doing it, Chris, exactly what you just said. So if we were able to do that, but I'm also concerned about labor. So is it too taxing on them to do that through this experiment? Did it work? Did it didn't work? You don't have to answer that, but I'm just saying, if that did work, how many lineal feet is that? Can we budget for that for next year and see how it goes again?
It was only 700 linear feet, so it didn't get us a whole lot. And it's been a busy month, we'll say.
Yeah, I think we're limited with our staffing to doing projects of a similar size each year. Probably not much more than that. We're not going to be able to do a mile a year with that method without increasing our staffing to do that.
Right.
At that point, we're becoming a contractor.
Right.
So it's a kind of a balance. What can we help
Right.
out with, and
That's
what do
right.
we have to contract out?
Let me go to Cecilia.
Just a quick question, I guess, for either Jenny or Greg. In terms of the water infrastructure replacements, is it any exploration in terms of having state monies or grants provided to offset those expenses?
So with water and sewer infrastructure replacement, it's difficult to score high enough on the applications for water and sewer funding through New York State EFC or other funding sources to replace water and sewer mains alone. Now with our water upgrade project that we have going on now, we have a package. It's a plant upgrade, it's replacing a tank which is in the distribution system, and it's replacing a short stretch of water main on the east end and a pressure reducing valve. So when you package things together, you can get some funding for, but if we just applied for, $1 million to replace water main on East Street, that wouldn't score well enough to be funded. Perhaps a lower interest loan as opposed to a grant, something like that. But even that, Chris, I don't think would be likely to be funded with currently available funding sources.
The scoring method needs to change.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe this is
It
a finance.
emphasizes treatment.
This is probably a finance committee discussion, but thinking about why that's the case, why the state makes it so difficult is another question.
All right. Anything additional, Council?
The only one thing that I wanted to say that the council members and the mayor can really help is talking with our state elected officials to try to get assistance for large items like the fire truck.
Right.
The last ladder truck that we received, we ended up receiving $750,000 towards the purchase between Senator Seward and Assemblyman McGee. So if you have any influence there, that would be very much appreciated.
Okay. Moving forward, I'm sorry, did this fall out of my package, or did page 17, the general
Page
fund?
17, I just mentioned that at the beginning there, that is a detail that Len had asked for the breakdown of the different departments on the 2024 savings.
Okay. Len, do you have anything you want to?
Do you feel that this is an average for the last 2 or 3 years?
It may be for the police department and also for the finance department. Engineering or DPW, yes, because they've had vacancies on and off throughout the past recent years. But I would have to analyze, to answer your question exactly, Len, with confidence, I would have to look at each department for the past few years to see if it really is an average. But I do know that, as I mentioned to you before, the finances had the vacancy for 3.5 years now, and that was over $100,000 each year. The police department has had vacancies routinely. That's usually a huge savings, only because of the anticipated budget for those positions. And I know with DPW, it's the same. And DPW gets spread between general water and sewer.
Right. So the judicial, though, isn't that just moving funds from one to the other?
Yeah, that's what I said. I noted that. I said
Okay.
transfer to the professional services via the county contract.
Okay. And then you couldn't get the mayor to spend the $52.48?
That-
We didn't tell him about it.
Could have bought pizza tonight there, man.
That was 24. Pizza.
We used to get pizza in these meetings.
Yeah, back in the day.
Who's to say?
If you guys
All
want
right.
pizza next time, I'll bring pizza.
There you go. And we'll apply it to my life. Where do we want to go from relative to our agenda?
Let's go. Right, we're in number 3 essentially right now, so let's just keep going.
That's what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah, we kind of skipped number 2 on the agenda, the discussion
As,
strategic plan, we can come
as,
back to.
right, and we skipped number 2, is we really only had one council member provide us with anything, and I feel like you guys all have an opportunity to see what was provided, and I think when we start to talk about the other embellishment of that by way of the department heads, we can kind of fold that in.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to just, if anyone else has thoughts, ideas, we can discuss it tonight, or please feel free to share them in email or have a conversation with me. We'll take whatever feedback we get into account, because we're gonna, at the, I think it's October 15th meeting, we'll be presenting the draft budget. October 15th, we'll also present the draft strategic plan. So whatever input we can have from council members, happy to take, try to incorporate that, as well as from.
And I would say, rather than people emailing you, with some sort of anecdotal, non-contained information, let's use the document that was provided, and let's a few more people input to that, so that we have something that looks like consensus develop around a few different areas, please. So moving on, continuing on then with our budget parameters. If you're ready, Jenny?
Is it me, Greg, or?
No,
Okay,
Jen-
I can
Oh, go ahead,
start
Greg.
and-
I'm sorry.
and jump in, Jenny, please. So, we talked about where that is in here, the original sheet we shared, Jenny, in our packet somewhere specific, so. I put mine in the very front. In the August 12th meeting, we had looked at this sheet. Anyone have that? We talked about the
The primary budget parameters.
assumptions
Got
that
it,
we
yeah.
make as far as revenues.
I don't know if you have that or not.
So if you have that, you can refer to that, but there's a few,
This is for the August 12th meeting.
yeah,
I don't think I got
I think
copies.
it was handed out at the meeting. We may not have had holes in it at the time, so it may have disappeared. We can get some copies for you.
Well, I missed the August 12th
Oh.
meeting, so I put it down. I'll follow up to get copies.
Okay, so
Thank you.
you don't necessarily have to have it in front of you right now. But there's a few parameters that we need your feedback on, and essentially a decision on what is going to be included in our draft budget that we propose to you in October. That we need that tonight. So moving forward, we've got department head requests. They were due on Friday. Those are in. Ginny and I will be reviewing those, working with department heads to come up with the draft budget, present it to you in October. We need to make some assumptions as far as revenues. Ginny typically estimates, as she shared tonight, what our projection is for this year. She looks at what projections we have for next year, any changes. That's what this sheet was going over. And several of those we need council input
I'm gonna
on.
make copies. I don't think this ever got distributed, Greg.
I
I'm
don't
gonna make
have it,
copies of
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think I printed it right before the meeting last time. So, property tax levy, big one. What sort of increase do we want to assume in our draft budget? We had suggested council consider a $400,000 increase from 25 to 26, whatever percent that equates to. Ginny had, I think, again, distributed the table that shows different percentages, what that equates to. We can refer to that, we can go back and find it. But we would like your input on what assumption do you want to see in the draft budget. We will tailor our expenses and our proposal to meet these revenue assumptions, and then obviously the council will have the option to increase or decrease depending on the discussion at that time. But we have to have an initial assumption. So are there any thoughts?
Don?
Well, you mentioned Ginny was talking about $400,000, that's 7.2%, that's the number you told me. And number of references were made to information at the that the controller had, some of the data was based on the controller department. Tom DiNapoli, the controller's information, he's recommending that, we stick to a tax cap of 2%. I think that's a good thing to start with.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So basically, the controller is recommending that only ought to have a 2% tax increase. That's the tax cap that comes from the controller.
Right.
If we were to raise $400,000, the property tax increase, that would be 7.3%.
I'm not sure if the tax cap is the same as a tax recommendation, though.
Okay, so can I jump in here for a
Please,
second?
Jenny.
Okay, so when we do the tax cap formula for 2026, to stay within the tax cap regulation, you would be able to raise about $152,000.
Taxes compound. So every year that we raise at a given amount, that's built in for the following years. So I think we can live within a 2% increase.
By the same token, every year we don't make an increase that's needed, we're falling further behind.
Sure.
Scott?
A little confused on percentages. Can we back up for a minute? So you, for $400,000, that was 7%?
Let me, I'm gonna go to the chart. Hold on one second.
Yes, that was bad. I left my folder.
Okay, so $400,000 would be 7.2%. It's on page 5 of your 72825 tab.
Okay, and then 5%, goes for 300,000, which is what we did last year.
And also, the state has not finalized their tax cap formula yet, so I will go onto the website within the next week or two and see if they have finalized it. Because they may change the growth factor, they may change the available tax base factor also. They also haven't decided if they're going to give credit for the state retirement rate increases.
You don't have it?
Because last year we did 5%, right?
Yes.
Approximately, it was
yeah,
$300,000.
Yeah, or about $300,000, yes. And if you do a $400,000 levy increase, that would be approximately, on the average assessment of about $105 in their bill.
And this is at is it $130,000?
$132,000 is the average
$132,000
residential,
average.
yeah.
And can you clarify too, when we have the tax cap, is that considered a recommendation from comptroller?
It's a guide. It's
A guide.
what it
Okay,
is, it's a
thank you.
guide. So, and then to go over the tax cap,
Requires.
obviously you need
Right.
to lay the local law and have the vote and things like that. So if the council does decide to go over the tax cap, I would recommend that we start the process sooner than waiting until November to lay the local law so we can get it in place. Doesn't mean we have to do it, but at least we have it in place so we can do it.
Right, it's your option. Scott?
What was 5% when we did that? Because
Um,
you said 7.2 is roughly $105 increase.
Yep, and about, if you go 300,000, which is 5.4, it's a $79 increase. 350,000 would be $92, and then 400,000 would be about $106.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Do you want to continue down through these? You were at the pilot agreements when we got.
We can, I mean, ultimately, we'll have to come back to this part, and we would like some direction from the council as to what to include in the draft budget. We can look at the other ones that we're looking for your input on. Sales tax, Ginny has suggested we consider a $500,000 increase as compared to 25 for 26. This would include, you know, based on what we've received to date and the projection for the rest of the year, Ginny thinks we can increase our budget $200,000. And then the additional $300,000 is based on the fact that we can now, the state and the county now collect, the county shares of the city, sales tax from short-term rentals. That was not the case before this year. That estimate is $300,000. Jenny, do you want to expand on any of that?
Yeah, I feel very confident in that number because I have the data from Allen at the county as far as how much revenue that they collect on short-term rentals. And we're just able to take the tax percentage and apply it and know what our 12% share is. So I'm very comfortable with the extra 300,000 as I am with bringing we went from 5.4 in sales tax in 24 up to 5.8 in 25. So the 200,000 is to bring it up to 6 million, but the extra 300,000 is to bring it up to the 6.3. We will probably come in over that, but I would like to not make that number too large.
Right. If you don't mind my skipping ahead one to the cannabis tax estimate at 40 grand, and now we have two legal. I don't know how many illegal, but we have two legal cannabis dispensaries at this point.
Yeah, my estimate for the cannabis tax is about $150,000 a year. That's why I'm thinking we could be able to increase it at least by $40,000.
Okay. And that's, you're taking into account
Yeah.
the expended.
I'm taking into account the money we've received so far.
So-
I don't have access to
And we
their
haven't
sales.
seen, this new dispensary's been open, I don't know how long, we haven't seen any indication of what kind of business.
And I don't know if it's gonna increase sales or it's just gonna be a competition between the two entities.
Okay. Scott?
You jumped ahead. Can we back
I
up
know,
for a second?
I apologize for that, but.
For clarification, was the short-term rental, is that the one we're waiting on the state to pass?
No,
for?
that's occupancy tax.
That's
It,
occupancy.
it's very much
Okay, I
related.
jumped ahead,
It's
I'm
related,
sorry.
yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Not the
but-
same.
no, Scott, it's a good question because it's very much related. The short-term rental sales tax is being charged to short-term rentals. The occupancy tax is a separate tax from sales tax, but that's also applied to short-term rentals as well as hotels. So
But it's not in the calculus
they're
here.
related, but the 300,000 is not the occupancy tax.
Yeah, that's just straight sales tax. And the occupancy tax is really a wonderful opportunity for the city to be able to collect revenues from really a lot of non-city residents.
Right.
So I think it's really a wonderful source.
And although we anticipate the chickens, we really shouldn't count them.
Well, sorry.
That was my question. What
Yeah.
is the status in terms of
The status is the same as it
availability of
was.
that
It has to get brought forward again when the legislature reconvenes.
And Mayor, please correct me if I'm wrong. The impression is that we do think that they will
Oh,
pass it
absolutely.
once
I
it
would
gets.
certainly bet.
Yeah,
heavily.
once
on
it
that.
gets in
Yes.
front of everybody, it will be passed.
Yeah.
That's why, and we also have the data from the county as far as how much revenue we will probably receive on an annual basis. And that's why I am recommending to take a chance and
Yeah.
budget the 200,000 for it, thinking that it will be implemented by July 1st. Because I believe we're probably gonna get about 400,000 a year, from, the occupancy tax. And I think that's being conservative, but again, it's based on what the county's information. And also with the new regulations on short-term rentals, more of them have to be registered. And the coordination that the county that is now doing with Stephen in the code enforcement office, we are getting more of them on the books and registered.
And I'm hoping for something more definitive from the senator. Again, it's gone through assembly, we're all good there, before we're much further along in this process.
I'm kind of the same opinion. I wouldn't want to count on the money, because you're counting on the state, and the state, a lot of times something passes, and then it goes on the governor's desk and never gets signed for months and months and months.
I'd say it's 99.9, but you're right, that's that 1/10 of 1%, and
I'd just rather be surprised and we get it, and then we have the money that we can put into either our reserves or whatever for a year, and then start counting on it in the next budget. That's what I would feel more comfortable with.
you want to continue? Wayne?
Okay, the next one, and the last one for the general fund balance that we really need your input on is the use of unrestricted general fund balance in our budget. We've done that typically over the last 25 years, except for 1 year maybe, Jenny,
There were a couple years where,
a couple years.
we didn't use it, but yes.
And that's what we're talking about with the 1.7 roughly that we budgeted in 2025. And in reality, we did not end up, we're not projecting to end up with a $1.7 million deficit. The general fund, we're looking at zero.
Right.
So understanding that the history with conservative budgeting, sales tax coming in a bit higher than we budget, other revenues coming in a bit higher, expenses not being 100% expended with vacancies and other things that don't get spent, we typically have some sort of a savings or close to a zero use of fund balance. That wouldn't necessarily be the case. We could have a great year and efficiently spend our money on valuable projects that we want to spend it on, as well as keeping, if we were 100% fully staffed all year, which would be almost impossible, that would be great for the city. We'd provide great services, but it would cost more than it typically has. And if that happened, we would just end up using that 1.7. That hasn't happened. So I think it's a little funny to think about, but I think being comfortable with budgeting a deficit in the general fund is not a bad thing. I think we understand reality typically doesn't equal what you budget, but if it does, we have our unrestricted fund balance that can absorb that. And if we see something like a pandemic, where like we did in 2020, we react, we change our habits, our operations, and we try to tighten down things, and we made it through that, okay. So whether it's that or any other type of, major impact to our financial outlook, we can change what we're doing at any point. Ginny, do you want to jump in on that too?
Thank you, Greg. Yes, I want to stress how important it is that we present a budget to council and also to the public to show what the actual costs are if we are able to fulfill all of our full-time, all of our staffing, have every department have all of their positions filled, and also fund all of the necessary projects that we need to fund for that year. And I think it's important that they know those costs. It's also important to realize that history has shown that we have vacancies. History has shown that we can't always get the projects done by the end of the year. So we end up having a savings and we don't realize that deficit. And we're also conservative in our revenue estimates. And that gives us the opportunity to build our reserves. And I think that's important for everybody to understand, that when you compare the budget estimate to the actual reality of results, it's two different pictures, and also but it also paints the picture, and it provides the information needed for future consideration of the what-if day. We are fully staffed. We are able to complete all of our projects because we do have all of our staff on hand. What is it going to cost? And so I think it's important that we've had the opportunity for the past couple of years to start building those revenues up. So when the day comes, when we do reach, as Greg said, our goal to have all of our staff members on board, all of our projects completed, we've got the funding in place. Again, it's the slow and steady process. And as I've talked to you before in previous meetings, our sales tax revenue exceeds our tax levy revenue. It should be just the opposite. And the county is in the same situation. And Alan stresses to the county, it should be the opposite. Your tax levy should always be higher than your sales tax revenue. And if you look at the history of actuals, the tax levy used to fund over 40% of the general fund budget. It's now down in the high 20s. That is something to really pay attention to, because that is your main funding source for providing the governmental services. It's one of the most important. So I just want you to be mindful of that, and to not let that percentage get so skewed that you all of a sudden have a large adjustment that's required.
So understanding that this is fully a council decision, but we have budget parameters around the property tax levy as listed here at $400,000 or so being requested from council. Is there a number that you would suggest that the council look at from the unrestricted reserves?
I would suggest the same as we did for the last 2 years, between 1.6 and 1.8. That's not even considering, as I've told the council, we're expecting between a 12 and 15% health insurance increase. Just think about for the general fund. Our general fund health insurance is what, $3 million between actives and retirees? So that's over a $300,000 increase just for health insurance. That doesn't include the retirement increases that we're going to be realizing from the state. It doesn't include, increase. Our contract for electricity has expired. That is now going to double because I locked it in about 3 years ago. And because I've locked that price in, the city's been very fortunate on our electricity prices. That is now expiring. We're going to have to renew, and it's going to be almost double from what we're currently paying. So same thing with natural gas, but I was able to lock that in until 2029 at a lower price than we're paying right now. I'm trying to do the same thing with electricity. I'm trying to get another bid from another company to see if they can compete with our renewal. But it's, again, even that company is not going to be able to match what we've had for the past 3 years.
How much is our electric bill?
The electricity, I'm sorry, I don't have that off the top of my head.
But I mean, is it in the millions or?
Oh, no, it's in the hundreds of thousands, but it's not in the millions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Don.
Yeah. So,
anybody else
yeah.
have a thought for Ginny right here? Yeah, Len.
I guess for tonight's purposes, my perspective is that we need to agree whether we're gonna go over the tax cap or not. And I would, because we need to pass that, right? We need to pass legislation to go over. So
Even as we may not do it.
Yeah, I don't think we need to dive down into the weeds to where we're gonna go. But I think I recognize that we're gonna go over the tax cap.
I do think, it's not a decision that can't be changed, but for the draft budget, for us to present a budget, we need to have a number to assume. So whether that's 400,000 or some other number.
Right.
Tonight, I think we do need to leave with a number so we know what to present to you on the 15th, and then that can change from there. But and it'll inform. It'll be big decisions if depending on what the number is. If there are significant cuts that need to be made, we're going to have to propose some difficult things and discuss those at the draft budget discussion.
Right. So we know that, having heard from Don, you're looking at not being comfortable with going much beyond $150,000, $160,000, which is, as far as we know right now, about a 2%, maybe aligning with the tax cap. Can we just kind of go around and get a sense of where people are on this, Mike?
I have a question for Ginny about this chart first before I can answer that.
Okay.
I'm looking at the page 5 of the, I was trying to time off. So the tax cap line, just want to make sure I understand all these columns correctly. The highlighted line, 152,000 would be 2.74%
Correct.
increase, and so the 2025 rate is there, and then per 100,000, that's per 100,000 of property value. Is that correct?
Per 100,000, yes. So it'd be $30 if your house was assessed at $100,000, your bill would go up $30.20. The
Okay.
average is 132, that's why I put it next to it.
Right. I mean, okay, so understanding that, I think I'd be comfortable with the average household working backwards. Average households going up $100 at 100, for 130,000 property, which if you work backwards is somewhere between the 350 and 400,000.
Okay, very good. Let me go to Cecilia for a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess for the public record, if we could talk about that, just to say that, and maybe Ginny, you can comment on this to contextualize my thoughts a little bit, but I'm just incredibly concerned, given about this budget and about future budgets for our city, given that what is occurring both on the state level and the national level, with the rollback of, and the clawback of public funds, that in future budgets, we are going to be unable to provide the services that our residents expect and need. And so I just want to make sure that as a council, we keep in mind that the future budgets may be far more dire and our residents may be in much poorer shape, given the what is essentially a clawback of public monies on the national and then eventually the state level. So, for what that's worth, it's something that literally keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to add to that or contextualize it a little bit for
Well,
us.
as I had reported at, I think maybe the last budget meeting, I contacted Barbara Van Epps at NICOM and asked if there was any information on the additional state aid that the city has received for the past 2 years. And she said, no, not at this time, and that the state is really having to deal with the loss of funding that the federal government is not going to provide New York State any longer. So that made me fearful that maybe they're going to cut our state aid instead of increasing our state aid. I'm hoping that we at least get the same. I have not been informed of any decisions at this time, and we probably won't know until probably mid next year, because they won't know the ramifications yet until everything follows through.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Thank you.
All right, let's continue round with just kind of a sense of council. Scott?
Anybody know what the cost of living has gone up?
Yes, I gave you a chart on it. Hold on one second.
I knew you did, but I
Yep,
didn't
hold
bring
on.
my book. I was a
Okay.
bad boy.
Okay.
Oh, no.
If you look at this, you'll see here, this has
What's
been the
page
cost
are you on?
cost of living in 2020, 1.4, then 5.9, 6.1, 2.6, 3.5. And then, so think about what we have increased our tax levies by, it's been averaging under 3%. But when you look at the cost of living, when you average these out, it's much higher, compounded over the years.
I'm just thinking cost of materials and stuff. So, and you wanted, and we're still looking at a 10 and a 10, right, for water, 10, sewer.
Not necessarily
Not
on the
necessarily.
rates, but what we're looking at is a 10% increase in the total revenues themselves. So
Okay.
that is one thing that we were looking at for water and sewer. Because the high users revenue has gone up so drastically from what happened last year, we are thinking that we may be able to my suggestion, I'm not quite there yet, but my suggestion is to increase the minimum by at least $10 for water and sewer, and then increase the first 4 steps by 5%. I believe that's going to be the recommendation once we do our water worth. So basically, their bills with the water and sewer, and remember, we've got about 3,800 water customers. Almost 1,800 of them, 1,900 of them never go over the minimum. So their bill would only go up $20 if we were to raise water and sewer each $10. And if you divide that by 12, it's not even $2 a month.
Of all the times I wish you went around the room to Either way. I don't think I'm, and it's hard because we don't even have, like, what was even asked for or anything yet
Yeah.
from our people, like, they just
Right.
submitted that stuff.
That's what I was gonna ask.
So it's kind of hard to give, I don't think we could stay at the tax cap.
Right.
I think we're gonna have to go over a little. If I had to put a dollar amount on it right now, I'd probably almost do what we did last year with the 300,000.
Okay. Glenn,
Yeah, that's actually, that's
Excuse me.
what
that's where you're at as well, 300.
Could I just say one thing?
Done.
I want to make it clear that I do support the increases in water and sewer rates.
Okay. All right. Right now, we're kind of,
I wanted to
Go ahead.
Sorry. So, show me the page for overall the actual employees citywide. What you're anticipating their salaries are gonna change. Since
That
that's
I don't,
70
that I don't have ready yet.
Right, isn't that
For-
70% of our budget?
Yeah, it's about 70% of our budget, but I have not projected 26 yet. We're working on that now.
Okay.
We just got the request from the department heads, and we'll,
Yeah, because I'm in the 25 tab.
Yep,
I'm
yeah.
on page 7 of 16.
yeah, but Len, for 26, I don't have the salaries ready yet.
Right, we don't have 20, yeah, we don't have 25s down either, so I didn't know what the percent. I just want to understand, knowing that we have union, where that's headed,
Hold on a second.
so that would help me for future.
For
reference.
25, in the general fund itself, personal services increased $300,600. Personal services and fringe benefits increased $804,950.
Right, so to this page, Jenny, it gives it in percentages, from
Can I-
2016 to 2024, this
Can I just
percentages.
come see what you're looking at?
Citywide salaries and fringe benefits. Percentages, and I know that it's gonna be a little skewed because of the,
Oh, yes.
we increased the
Yeah,
rate, so.
that, yes, that I do not have for 25 yet, but I can put the 25 budget on there.
Right, and so for me,
Yeah.
to really kind of finalize, since it's the largest portion of our budget,
Right,
if you could
so-
tell us what 25 is and then what you're projecting 26 to be?
Between the 24 budget and the 25 budget, total salaries and fringe benefits went up 5.9%.
5.9?
Yep.
That's-
From the adopted budget to the adopted budget.
Okay.
I do not have 26 ready yet.
So it's, I'm gonna ask, so it's about in line with a 5.4% increase.
Close that one.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Shannon?
Wait, am I going?
Yes, please.
Oh. I definitely think we need to go over tax cap. You're putting in to be able to do what you wanna try out, right? Okay. So I'm thinking we may have to go over 200,000.
Do you have a sense where you want to get to in terms of dollar
Not,
amount?
I'm a little more.
We're looking at 300, 350, 140. That's approximately what we're putting out there right now.
I'm done.
Oh,
I feel like it's a waste.
so,
I didn't hear the number.
Well, we're gonna, definitely gonna have to go over the tax cap, but I agree that I wanna kind of, like, I feel like,
Okay, you're not inclined to put even though we're not going to hold you to it, but just in terms of how far over that you might feel like you want to be able to go.
I feel like I wanna see what people are, like, this is where we got caught up, where I felt, I'm gonna talk for everyone else. Last year, I felt like people were asking for reasonable things, and when we got it, I was like, oh, yes, this makes a whole lot more sense.
So we're going to put you
So,
at plus the tax
I
cap,
think
and then
plus the tax
we'll
cap.
have you
I
come
wanna
back
see.
when the time comes. Cecilia?
so I would be comfortable, 6 to 7%, and again, my concern is for the future and the longevity of providing the services that residents expect and need.
So we're sitting at somewhere between 350, 400
Oh,
in
yes.
terms of dollars.
Yes, in the 100, yes, 350 to 400.
See, you've trained me.
Mhm.
And Elaine.
Yeah, and I'd say, you know, I would like to go with the recommendation, for the property tax, you know, again, in that, you know, range of the, up to, you know, $400,000. I'm especially concerned about some of these increases that are coming down the line. You know, like the health insurance, retirement, things that are really outside of our control, even bringing in, like Jenny had mentioned, like the electricity. These are things that are only going to continue to increase over time. It is outside of our scope to, you know, reduce those costs in a lot of ways. I know there's some negotiation we can do, but ultimately, those are costs that we're going to continue to incur, and they will continue to increase. We know that. So I really feel strongly that, you know, we need a budget that will support that now and into the future.
Okay, so we're looking at a consensus of three, potentially as much as $400 that most of the council is comfortable with, not everybody, but generally speaking, that's where we're at. Can you, again, just for everyone's edification, including the media, what that is again in terms of a raise in taxes for someone who has a, let's say, $100,000?
Okay, so if we were to increase the tax levy by $300,000, for a $100,000 assessment, the annual bill would go up $59.95. For $350,000, it would go up $70.02. For $400,000, it would go up $80.08. And again, that's an annual bill, it's not a monthly bill.
Right.
So take that and divide it by 12.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jenny. All right, do you have what you need to be able to move forward?
Not quite.
Not quite.
I mean, I want to just narrow it down and
Well,
we're picking a number at some point.
What I would like to recommend, if everybody just kind of goes with the flow, for the draft budget, I'll use a $400,000 figure. And then you can decide when the numbers get presented to you, if you want to cut that down to the $300,000. Is that feasible, or do you want me to go in the other direction and do $300,000 and possibly increase it to $400,000?
Folks,
My
let's just say your hand.
preference, as you know, my preference is the $400,000 because we are just so far behind where we should be. That's my recommendation.
Cecilia?
I would support that.
Okay. So all in favor, just raise your hands, all in favor of letting Ginny work with $100,000 and we move backward from it if we need to, or, you know, let's do that first. Is that where we want to go consensus-wise? Raise your hand if yes. So, no. You would like to, those who, I didn't actually see hands go up. How many hands for the 400? So three. So $300,000 and working the other direction. Hands up, please.
Okay, how about $350,000?
There we go. I think we found a happy medium.
Can we meet in the middle?
Can we work with $350,000, everyone?
Yeah.
And then we know we're going to probably adjust one way or the other.
And I'll add something. So when, obviously, we don't have the department head requests to share and talk about tonight, but when we have the draft budget, we will. There are certain things that are one-time expenditures or particular increases or different position that's proposed, or things that I think should be focused on and discussed. So we'll have those certain things that are included in the draft budget and certain things that are outside of the draft budget because they just didn't fit in, that have been proposed by department heads. And we'll have, similar to the Finance and Human Resources forms where they have a little background information, why is this being proposed, what's the justification, what are we getting from it, what's the cost. We'll have something like that put together for each of these items. So you have things to really look at and consider, okay, well, if we went to the 400,000 or if we went down to the 300,000, what are we putting in or taking out? So it'll help, I think, focus the decision making at that time. So it won't just be, here's a draft budget that has a $350,000 increase. What do you guys say, yes or no? It'll be, here are some things that are included that you may want to consider. Do you agree with them being included? And here are some things that were not included because they just didn't fit in, but do you want to consider including them by increasing revenue somehow, whether that's through the property tax levy or use of fund balance or otherwise.
I think it was helpful last year to have that.
And we'll try to make it even
So I just wanna make sure that if Len and Scott are comfortable if I go with the 350 for the draft, and if you're not, I'll go with 300, and we can always increase it if needed.
I would like to see us start at the 300,000 and then move up, because that, again, to Shannon's point, I'd like to see what comes back from the department heads. But I also am recognizing the new, and I know that you're very conservative, but we do have new income headed, new revenue headed our way. I kind of under that thought process, I had a note of the 153 that we're going to get from 195 Main Street. Are you identifying that into the 25 or the 26?
That's in 25. That's
So you're going to push that on the ledger for 25?
Yeah, yes,
So
because
we received the money
we
already?
received the money,
Oh,
yes.
okay, all right.
Yep, we received the money, so.
So just because we've gone back and forth, everyone okay with Ginny pursuing a budget with a $300,000 increase? And then we'll work our way the other direction based on what we see. Yes, hang on a second, Mike. Everybody okay with that? Mike says no. All right, so Mike.
My concern, having been in a gallery view and not as part of the process last year, was seeing how so many things that we wanted to do then end up getting cut at the end. When we felt like we didn't have the money for it, and maybe that same thing will happen. No, but it seems unlikely that we're going to say, okay, we set the table at 350.
Right.
But we want these things. It seems like unlikely this money's going to add them at the end. And I think what would be really useful for me, Jenny, would be, if this is not too onerous, to create a calculation that includes the kind of things that Len, you were talking about, like what last year's budget would cost. Like if we did what we did last, like what the increases are in different expected areas, so that we could.
Oh, you will know that once we get all the requests in and everything
Right.
gets, that will be presented to you.
Right, but I'm looking at cost increases for materials and staff and insurance and so on, so that we were running the city exactly as we ran it this year overall. I mean, hopefully we don't have the same water main break, but who knows? What that would be, because without that figure, it's hard for me to decide between 300 and 350.
Okay, so I'm fine building the draft budget based on 300,000, knowing that you all know I'm going to suggest that we go higher, but that's the number we'll start with. So, and if we all agree we're gonna go over to the tax cap, then can we get the local law started and
Yeah.
that process?
Absolutely, we can do
forward?
that. Let me get with Elaine.
Yeah, just as far as the amount, I agree, with Councilmember Forster Rothbard about, I think it'd be a much different task for people to add onto the budget, and I think it'd be easier for us to start off at 350 and then, make reductions. I agree, I just don't see it going the other way. So I would much rather see us start with 350.
We added,
Go ahead, Shannon.
we did add pieces. We added $60,000 for the stuff on Main Street.
Not during the budget.
Huh?
That was after. That was happened this year. That got cut from the budget. That's what I'm saying, like, we'll cut things. We didn't add anything to the budget in my recollection, though,
We
during the
added
budget
three
process.
positions.
That's true, we did, you're right. But that was proposed prior. We didn't, during the budget process, make new proposals to add into the budget. That's the clarification, and I think that's what you're getting at, Mike, is that, during the budget process, when we're looking over a draft budget, we may say we want to reduce this, but I don't recall in any instance that we looked at increasing.
Mike.
Just one more comment. During the budget review committee process, I mean, our mandate was to try to find places that we could save money, and I feel like we found some places here and there, but overall, what we heard from department heads was their desires to, increase staffing or to have money to save, to put aside for capital expenses, that kind of thing. And so, if, as I suspect, the cost of living, has increased, what was the number, Scott?
3.5 was the latest, but we had
Oh.
a couple that were like 6s before that. But the
Right,
budget
so-
still went up like tax cap.
Right, so just thinking 3.5%, you know, just across the board, that means, if I'm doing the math right, if we're at 350,000, that's increasing the total 6.3%, so that only gives us another 2%. We're not gonna fund the, you know, a couple more firefighters, an additional park staff person, sewer repair, you know, getting ahead of the sewer proactive, you know, without putting that money in. And looking at the city comparison and seeing that both our tax levy and our expenses are significantly smaller than other cities, and without the per capita information, it's hard to know. It's hard to know if we're comparing apples to apples, but I see that. I mean, no one likes to raise taxes, but if we want to do the things that people in the city want to do, we need the money to come from somewhere.
I'd like to go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just also want to point out that when we're talking about like getting down to, you know, what this is gonna cost, you know, individuals, you know, we're talking about a difference of like the $350, you know, $1,000, if we went with that, that would be an average of $5.83 a month, okay? 300,000, we're talking $4.99 a month. So when we break it down to that level, we're really talking like less than $1 per month, you know, for most residents. So I would really like to go with that 350, you know, again, in consideration of the future expenses that we know we're going to continue to increase, and also, you know, what Councilmember Walsh-Russo brought up about the uncertain future of federal funds.
All right, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to go around and just give you the option 300, 350. Elaine?
350.
Cecilia?
I'd say 400, but I'll say 350.
Well, yeah.
Like, we're just trying to land on a number. All right, so 350 is Jen.
300.
300. Len?
300.
Scott?
300.
Mike?
400. Or 350.
I don't remember the number that 2% would raise,
152.
152.
All right, but the question was 300 or 350.
Either one.
Well, we know Don, we know he's gonna say.
Yeah, okay, so Don skews low on this, let's say, so,
Oh, tax cap, right?
yeah. Bottom line, Don skews low on this, not higher, so given a choice between one number and another number, one number being higher, we have 4 votes for the lower number, so let's go with the 300,000. Okay? You complicate my life, Don. Okay, so you've got a number to work with, Jenny.
Yeah, 300.
We have department heads will be bringing us their wish lists, must-haves in a lot of cases. And so we'll start to, yes, Len?
So, Greg, when could you get us the number, Virginia, get us the number for which you're projecting the labor in totality to move up, what that percentage is, because those are fixed numbers.
The unions are fixed, of course, the administrators are decided by the council.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So there's a portion that isn't, but we can, you know, that's part of the overall budget preparation that we figure takes a month. I don't know if I want to commit for Ginny when exactly that piece can be done. Ginny, do you
Yeah,
have thoughts?
I'm going to say it's probably within the next 3 weeks. I should have a good number budgeted idea on that. Right now, I've got staff working on the files for me. I just need to audit their work and make sure everything is included.
So, but when you budget at the full amount, meaning you're not looking at subtracting out the vacancies, you include them, and you include them with a family rate, so that takes us to the top, because that's the what if for you. So I guess I'm trying to understand why we can't have that, because it is literally a fixed number besides the folks that are on the administrative list, which is somewhat fixed also. Why we can't see that number, why we need to wait another 3 weeks for that.
Well, just because I've got to make sure that everything gets accounted for accurately. And what happens is that I still don't have the final retirement rates from the state yet. They came out last week with a notice that they were decided upon, but I haven't received a notification from the state that they're available. So right now, I'm using last year's retirement rates for the budget and not what is going to happen effective April 1st of '26. And also, right now, we've got the contracts costed out, but between, the staff and between the unions and, current staff versus vacancy. But again, we've got staff working on that. I have not had time to look at it. So that's why I say I need probably, by the time I get, because as I said to you, I got to finish the audited financials. That's going to take me probably another week and a half. Then I will get into budget and I will look at those numbers. And as soon as I have them, I can provide them.
And those will be very accurate numbers.
They're going to be
If-
very accurate, yeah.
I'll talk with Ginny, we'll work and see if, based on a spreadsheet I have, which is not accountant level accuracy, if we can come up with a more rough estimate.
I'd appreciate
In a shorter time frame, which would not be reliable, it's not gonna be what's in the draft budget, but maybe it's close. But I'll talk with her about that, I wanna commit to it until I review it.
Yeah, and I'll give you, for example, we get, because our budget is so tight, we will actually look at the fire crew, figure out who's working 91 tours, 92 tours. We'll look to see when their anniversary date is, and we calculate the number of hours between the different rates. So that way, we're not taking like the highest rate for the full year. That's how detailed we get into the calculation. So that way, we can bring you the lowest number possible. And so that's what we're doing. And then also, I don't have the final health insurance rate yet. They're still negotiating. So right now, all I have is an estimate. I have no information yet on the 65+ plan. I probably won't get that until October, maybe early November. So right now, I'm just using an estimate.
Any more? No? Jenny, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Janine.
That's it on the tax, I'm sorry, that's it on the property tax,
Oh.
but there are
What else
other
we got?
assumptions we just wanna.
Oh, okay, let's
agree
hit
upon.
them, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead,
Oh.
Mike.
Well, when we get to the right point,
Go ahead.
Okay. So the next one we were talking about was sales tax.
Okay, yes.
Back up, we had recommended assuming a $500,000 increase.
Right.
Again, this has nothing to do with occupancy tax, but that would be the recommendation. Ginny, again, if you can recite what we budgeted this year, 5.8.
5.8 is what we budgeted for sales tax.
We're on pace for
About 6.4.
6.4, and your recommendation for 2026
Is
is
raise it up to,
6.3.
is right, to raise it up, the 200,000, bring the 5.8 up to 6 just for the normal activity, and then add the additional 300,000 on the short-term rentals. So
Mhm.
bring it up to 6.3.
Don?
Could you say that again, explain that? I didn't quite understand.
So we budgeted 5.8 million in sales tax revenue for 2025. We're on pace so far this year for about 6.4 million by the end of the year. Normally, in the way that Ginny budgets, you would recommend going up to 6 million.
Correct.
Because we have this additional $300,000 in sales tax that's gonna be coming to us, which is an accurate estimate based on the new, short-term rentals, that's why she's willing to recommend 6.3.
Thank you. I didn't quite hear one part of that, but I got it. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Cool.
and all that seems fine.
Go ahead, Shannon.
No, I was just saying, all that sounds fine.
All right. Good. Yes, Mike.
in general, this sounds fine, but Len, you've been talking to me about, trying to make our estimates closer to the reality. Is this a case where, I don't, if we're on case for 6.4 million this year, is there a reason to only estimate 6 million for next year?
You have to remember that sales tax is based on economic activity, okay? So if something happens where people stop spending, they stop shopping, they stop traveling, whatever, that's gonna go down. If all of a sudden the gas prices, we get a lot of sales tax from, our gas stations. If something happens where the price of gas goes way down, that sales tax is gonna go way down. If auto sales goes way down, that's gonna go, so it's out of our control. And that's why I don't like to have 100% faith in the number. I would much rather be pleasantly surprised, as Scott said, as far as having the surplus to work with and building our fund balance with it.
said that?
I said that. She
I'm
said
sorry,
that.
guys?
Yeah.
I surprised myself sometimes. He's gonna get that chocolate statue right in the middle of the roundabout.
So let's move on from the sales tax. Unless somebody's got anything else they want to bring to that. And we talked about the cannabis tax estimate.
Occupancy tax
Occupancy
is the
tax.
next one. Are we assuming 0 and hoping for the best, or
Yeah,
assuming
that's what I would like to do.
200,000 and hoping for the better, or something else? Anything at all?
I just don't wanna count on it with the state.
They owe us $1
I
million,
mean,
by
it's-
the way.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as well. I hate to say it, but we are sitting on $1 million, funding for the Muskie Field for
Yeah,
how
whenever the
long now?
dormitory authority wants to give us that $1 million.
Yeah. So, not to complicate your life particularly, and I do believe it's a 99.999, but I don't want to just say, let's count on, and even though, we are talking about half a year at $200,000, yeah, I'd rather know, and maybe, in this budget process, while we're still in the budget process, we'll have something a little bit more definitive. Certainly try to make that happen. Go ahead, Tom.
I think it's reasonable to make that assumption,
Which,
that it's $200,000.
Yes.
Yes, because, if I remember correctly, the assembly is already.
yes, Assembly's already
Okay.
passed, yes.
When the Senate comes back, they're very likely to approve it.
I would say very,
And
very
the
likely,
government
yes.
Very likely to sign.
Yeah.
So at the latest, that would be like during the next budget process.
It'll either happen very, very soon, or it'll happen on the other side of New Year's.
Yeah, and I haven't heard of the legislature coming back, so it'll probably be next spring, I would think, something like that.
And keep in mind that as far as the process goes, after the state authorizes it, then the city has to go through the process to adopt a local law
Mhm.
to implement it. So it doesn't happen immediately as soon as the state approves it.
I don't think there'd be any opposition within the council to, if the state approves it, that we'll do that.
Right, of course,
That would be embarrassing.
we're not there yet.
Well, I'm just saying from the time frame of implementation.
Yeah, that's why my suggestion was for half year.
I think that's reasonable.
I see what you're saying, yeah. Interesting, okay. Council, other thoughts on this? Let it go at the 200?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So is that a 0 or 200? What it-
200.
Yeah, but I,
I'm not at 200. I mean, because it's,
Five hands.
I mean, you literally just told us a little while ago that you're not sure if you're gonna get state aid. So why would we project on another revenue?
well, the reason why I'm confident in this is because it has passed the assembly.
Right.
And with the data that the county has provided me, I know the numbers are
It's
solid.
also not state revenue, I mean,
Yeah,
it's not money out
state-
of their
yeah,
pocket.
Yeah, it's not money out of their funding sources, correct. That's why. The state aim, that is what they collect and distribute to the municipalities. They would have no control over distributing this. That's why I feel comfortable. But I don't want to put any of you in a situation where you're not comfortable.
Mike?
I have a question since this is my first time through the budget process. Has the council historically, when you have a revenue source that is likely but uncertain, put it in the budget for the second half of the year as a tentative, like, if we, if July 1st we have that this is passed, then July 1st we will take that revenue and, like sort of pre-allocate it, even though I'm not sure about it. We will do some things we wanted to do. We will hire that firefighter. We will, put this money to that.
We did that during COVID and coming out of COVID, we had the budget and then we had a special line over here in parentheses, if we turn the corner and we start bringing in this money, then these are the projects that what we're gonna handle down through.
Yeah.
So we have done that before, but it's very cumbersome when we did it.
And what I would suggest is if that money comes in, we just reduce our appropriated fund balance. Because it's another funding source for our current expenditures. I wouldn't want to add to our expenditures. I would just want to reduce what we're taking out of fund balance.
Right. Comes accounted on revenue stream.
See, I would feel comfortable doing that. So leaving it at 0 and then reducing once we start seeing the money come in. It's like the other cannabis fund. We don't know. That's what you were saying earlier. We don't know what that, or is it we already have saturation? We don't until we see what happens. Why count on money that you don't know?
So, and I'm fine that we can do a budget amendment, if it passes before we adopt,
Mm-hmm.
we could adopt, amend the tentative budget. If it passes in January, we can do a budget amendment at that time to increase that revenue and decrease the appropriated fund balance.
You're able to increase revenue?
You are able, if it is a state source that you did not know you were going to get, yes,
Right,
that you'd be
okay.
able to do.
My question is, because if we couldn't adjust the budget to increase anticipated sales tax revenue, for instance, but you could with the state revenue.
Right. Okay,
That's our direction?
That seems like,
Show of hands? Okay.
yeah. Do we want to roll down?
and the use of fund balance, is everybody comfortable with between 1.6 and 1.8?
Yeah, I think that we have agreed.
Agreed on that? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is all just to get you a place where you can actually build something. Anything else that we need to?
Water and sewer,
Water
we
and
talked
sewer.
about it briefly, but using
Yeah, so-
an estimate of 10% increase on our total revenue from water sales and from sewer rents.
And we've already, because of the large user line, what I've estimated that to be for 25, that is a very large number. So that is, I would like to just duplicate that number for 26, and then for the not, what I call the non-college sales, we need to increase that area to get up to the 10%. So I want to say it's between 5 and 6%, but once I actually do the full budget, I can come back to that recommendation. But my recommendation, I know for the minimum, is gonna go up at least $10 for water and $10 for sewer. And then the first 3 to 4 steps, probably 5%. Remembering that the bulk of the users stay within the minimum.
Right. And that's important for their new council members who haven't,
Yes.
gone through this.
And also, as far as the large users, you've got about 21 accounts that are carrying the bulk of the revenues. And so I just want you to keep that in mind, that small percentage of, 3,800 customers, and you've got 21 to we've got about 65 quarterlies that we do, but the bulk of them is about 21 customers that carry the largest consumption.
But,
Yeah, so I'm good with your recommendation, but I'm still very curious of the Waterworth presentation. so.
Yes, and I do apologize that I'm not gonna hit the tentative timeline, it's just workload.
yes, Scott.
I like doing it in dollars versus percentages. I
Yes,
think when you talk
I-
to somebody, like maybe you say a percentage, and
yep.
it kind of scares them, because then they're starting to do the math. But if you say, hey, look, we're looking at $10.
And I will bring that information to you.
Yeah.
Yep, I will bring that information to you. And I'll show you what each step would go up on an annual basis if they hit the max on that step.
Okay, I think we are where we need to be. All right, folks, unless there's something else, I think we've given, just in case you didn't have anything to do, Jenny, enough to work with, and Greg. So, again, if there's nothing else for council consideration,